I'm Tammy Kolda, an applied mathematician, and this is Unlocking LaTeX Graphics. On this channel, I present tutorials on using tikz and pgfplots. The videos on this channel are based on my book, Unlocking LaTeX Graphics, as well as some bonus materials. Today, I'm continuing the project from the last episode where we used the groupplots library in pgfplots to reproduce a figure from a highly cited machine learning paper. In part one, we built the basic structure, two vertically stacked plots with a shared x-axis. Today, in part two, we'll refine the tick marks and legend, and then add two types of annotation using tikz, dotted arrows that connect the two plots, and a call-out label pointing to a specific data point. Let's get started. We're starting exactly where part one left off. The only thing I've changed is the document title. I'll link that episode in the show notes, and you can start with that if you're not sure how we got where we are right now. Okay, so there are a few things that are different in our picture than in the original picture. Let's start by fixing the tick marks. In the original paper, the ticks are outside of the axis box, but pgfplots defaults to placing them on the inside. Let's move them to the outside by adding something to the groupplots options. Here I'm going to say tick align equals outside. That flips the ticks so they point outward. Next, there are no tick marks on the top and right edges in that original picture, but we have them. So how do we get rid of those? We put tick pause equals left. You might think that just removes the right ones, but it also removes the top ones. So now we have ticks only on the left and the bottom. Next, I want the tick marks to look more like the original picture. These are gray and very thin. I'm going to make them black and thin, so a little bit thicker than they are now. Now it matches the axis lines, which looks more like that figure we're trying to emulate. I'm also going to jigger the length just a little bit. I'm going to change it from the default 1.5 millimeters to 1 millimeter. Finally, I'm going to have you look at the data markers. If you look at the original picture, they actually are cut off at the axis border, and ours go over the axis border. Now, I like the look that we have now better, but if you do want to change that, the way that you do that is you say clip marker paths equals true. Now let's look at the legend. In the original picture, the legend is across the top and it's horizontal. Ours currently is in the lower right corner with entries stacked vertically. We're going to make our changes inside the first group plot. I'll start by adding legend columns equals -1 following the legend specification in the first group plot. That's going to change the legend to be horizontal rather than vertical. -1 means use as many columns as there are entries, so both entries appear on a single row. Now I'm going to move the legend above the top plot. There's no predefined pause for that, so I'm going to get rid of this line entirely and replace it with a legend style. The @ key tells it where it's going to be relative to the axis. So it's at the halfway point horizontally, and 1.03 says it's 3% above the top of the axis. And then I'm making the anchor to be south so that it hooks to the point on the bottom. Now it's in the right position. Let's next remove that border box. We do that by saying that the legend style is draw equals none. Now, I could put draw equals none inside the legend style I've already defined, but I want to point out here that you can add as many legend styles as you want, and they just keep appending to what was there before. That removes that border box around the legend. Now, the spacing in horizontal legends is always a little bit funny. So the last legend refinement is going to adjust the column spacing. And so internally, these legends are stored as a matrix objects inside pgfplots. And then we can specify the spacing for the even and odd columns. And so here we're going to say for the even columns, the spacing is 0.6 centimeters. So that adds spacing between the entries. And then we want a little extra space between the line that's drawn and the text by setting the odd column spacing to 0.1 centimeters. So that is a much nicer look and much closer to the original. Now everything is good with the figure itself. The last part we want to focus on is the annotations, which I'll add using tikz commands. So the original figure has dotted arrows connecting the last data point of each line in the top plot to the corresponding Y position in the bottom plot. To add these, I first need to load two tikz libraries at the top, then use name coordinates to mark the start and end points of each arrow, and finally draw the arrows. As I mentioned, we'll need to load a couple of tikz libraries for the annotations, so let me go up here and do that. So I'm going to add the arrows.meta, which provides the triangle arrowhead style we'll use for the arrows. I'm using the backgrounds library so that we can draw the arrows on a layer that sits behind the content. And that's a choice. You could do it either way. Now, before I draw anything, I have to set up some coordinates. So I'm going to go to the first group plot and the first orange plot. And after the table, I'm going to add a coordinate. So I'm adding here a coordinate at position equals 1. That's at the very end of the plot, and I'm naming it orange start because that's going to be the start of our annotation from the end of the orange line. So that captures that coordinate. This name coordinate lives in the global tikz coordinate system, so it can be referenced anywhere inside the tikz picture, even outside of the group plot. Now I'll do the same for the blue add plot, naming its last point as blue start. For the second plot, I'm going to add the ending points. These actually are not on the curve itself. They're on the x equals 0 axis. So I'm just going to actually add them manually. So I'm creating two coordinates here, one at axis CS0 268.3 and the other at axis CS0 898. The axis CS means use the coordinate system of the plot itself. This is actually the default, but specifying that makes it super clear. Now I have all my points and can draw the arrows connecting these two plots inside of the group plot. I'm going to use a scope command outside of the group plot, but still inside the tikz picture. And I'm going to put it onto the background layer. I'm also going to specify that every path, so all these arrows I'm drawing are going to be densely dotted, and use the triangle arrowhead. And I'm going to scale that to 80% of normal, and these will be very thick. Now, when I compile that, we'll get our drawings. I am using this bar dash operation, which says make a left turn or a right turn. So first go the vertical direction and then go the horizontal direction. The last annotation I want to make is this parameter size call out with a small arrow pointing to the first data point of this blue line up here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back up to my add plot there, and I'm going to insert another coordinate here that's named note, and that's just going to be the pointer for my note. This time I use position equals 0, which refers to the first point on the path, and I'm naming it note. Now I can draw the annotation. I'm going to go again outside of my group plot and after my scope, and I'm going to draw a thick line with a triangle at the beginning, scaled again to 80%. And I'm going to shorten the beginning by 2 points just to make it so that that arrow just has a little bit of space in front of it. And then I'm going to go down minus 15 degrees in a distance of 1 centimeter and add a node that has parameter size. When I compile that, we get our parameter size annotation. Now we have a figure that really matches the original, and we've seen how to use tikz to add annotations that span across multiple group plots. I hope you enjoyed today's episode on refining and annotating a group plot. We refined the tick marks and legend to more closely match the original paper figure that we're trying to emulate. We also used tikz to add two types of annotations, L-shaped dotted arrows connecting points on the two different plots. We also created a labeled call out pointing to the first data point on the first plot. I include a link to the overleaf document I created today in the show notes. If you found this helpful or interesting, please click like or subscribe. If you have tikz or pgfplots questions, please post them in the comments. If you'd like to learn more, please check out my other videos. I also have a book, Unlocking LaTeX Graphics, available for purchase at major book retailers. Thanks for watching.